Alright, what's up you guys? This is Devin from CenturyFX Studios, back with another video. And today we're going to be talking about the Yongnuo 600 EXRT, the Mark 1 and Mark 2. They're essentially the same Speedlite flash, but we're going to be talking about them today. And the reason why I'm selling them and getting rid of them as fast as I possibly can. Yes, this is a third-party flash. It is an alternative to your, I say your Nikons and your Canons that are, can get over $500 depending on what, how you're buying it, the system that you're buying for the Speedlite, the accessories that you're buying for the Speedlite, the whole usage of the Speedlite. By the time you get done, you can easily get up to $500. Where if you buy this thing, you're looking at about 100 and change. Right off 100. If you buy it used, you can probably get it for like 90 or even 70 if it's not damaged. The reason why I bought this is, of course, I needed the Canon alternative, but I like the fact that I'm able to learn more about Speedlights. It has a ratio mode, a radio triggering mode, it has ETTL, it has ITTL, it has optical slave, it has rear curtain sync, high speed sync, and all these different functionalities all packed within one Speedlite. And it's, I think it's less than 3/4 the price of the, not 3/4, it's like 1/3 the price of a Canon equivalent flash, but it does almost exactly the same thing in functionality. But after using these for 2 years, I realized that, daggone, you have to understand the demand of photography. If your demand for photography is high, which it is now in this climate, and your equipment can't do it, doesn't matter what you have, a cell phone, a camera, whatever, yeah, you get a little bit more perks because the camera looks fatter, looks bigger, it looks more professional, and yeah, you will get that pull. But a lot of people have smaller cameras and they're getting away with it because of cell phones and the new advent of all these smaller sensor cameras and all this other stuff that can do a lot more with it being a lot smaller. Now, lenses can't change their size, but that's a different story all in itself. But you have these new sensor technologies that can do a lot more. And the only thing that separates a good photographer and a budding photographer is the ability, or the equipment of the photographer is the ability to use the actual tools that you have at your disposal.
Why are we spending all this money on camera gear and our shots look the same? Ask yourself that question. Seriously. We are lazy and we do not maximize what our cameras can do. That is the single biggest problem in our industry.
Now, this Speedlite does all those things, but this Speedlite, I want to throw these things in the trash. To tell you the truth, because it's one thing to have something, but it's another thing to have something and then to lose it. It's one thing to never have a Speedlite. It's one thing. If you never had a Speedlite before, you don't know what you're missing. You can thirst for it. You can think about, oh my goodness, there's a Speedlite there. Wow, that's amazing. I'm good enough with natural light, but one day I want to upgrade to a Speedlite. It's another thing when you're given everything that you possibly want: ratio mode, high speed sync, ETTL, ITTL, optical slave, all this other stuff, ratio mode and radio triggering and stuff like that, and then learn how to use it and then it not work for you when you know it can do it. That's a totally different aspect on a piece of equipment. So I'm going to go through all the things that went wrong, and then I'm just going to sell these things. But I want you guys to understand what you're getting yourself into if you buy a Yongnuo YN 600 EXRT, a Mark 1 or Mark 2, or pretty much any Yongnuo flash when you get it. Now, take that with a grain of salt, because I've had a 500 series Yongnuo, and it lasted me for a little bit longer than these flashes did, but these flashes have a lot more sensitive technology on the inside, and if you bang it up against something or just knock it up against something, it'll be terrible. So here is all the things that went wrong. We have the weather sealing things. We have little rubber sealing, I guess, rubber mounts that came on here, and all this stuff is all rubbery and stuff like this, much like any other camera. But you have this weather sealing gasket at the bottom here, which is supposed to protect it from rain getting in it when you mount it to the camera. It comes off super easy. I'm not going to rip it off because I'm trying to sell this thing, but this can come off like day one. It's that simple. It can come off day one. Now you have the rubber covers. This one rips off super duper easy. Like, you can have the camera on once and this sucker rips off. I'm talking about gentle use, like 1 or 2 days. I can only do so much to a flash in 1 or 2 days. Now you have a whole bunch of stuff that actually goes wrong with this thing, like the battery door. It gets damaged quick. It's one of the first thing that gets damaged, and if you can't put batteries inside of the flash, then sorry Charlie. Next thing, the flash tube is heavy. So This section of the flash tube, this is all pretty much flash tube and the mounting system for the flash tube. Now, once this flash tube starts to fall, or this Speedlite falls, it's gonna fall where most of the weight is, and that's on the top. And it doesn't have as much, it doesn't have good leverage at all with this being such a small thing with a big flash column here at the top. So once this starts to fall, it falls on the flash head. Well, once the flash head falls, it's no good. Why? Because I've had this thing fall 1 foot and the flash tube just breaks. Now, how do I know it's just the flash tube? It's because when I hit the pilot button, I can hear sparks. I can hear like a little sparking pop. And the only thing, I can hear it coming up to the flash tube, but of course I can actually see the flash tube on the inside, and it's like a little straight line, like a filament in a light bulb, and it's broken. So you start to understand that this, they'll give you everything that you want, but then when you go to use it, it's not durable enough for you to sustain anything over a year or two. You start to get very frustrated, and then you start to think of it like, okay, like I told you, it's like 1/3 the price of a Canon flash. Canon flash like $300, $400, $500, depending on which one you get and what time it comes out. Now, if I were to buy 3 of these, then that would absolve me of the whole price of just one Canon flash. But that one Canon flash will last me 7 years. 10 years, or the one I had before, it lasted like 7 years, and the only reason that it went down is because the screws came out, and I didn't have a screwdriver in time. And then one day I was using it, I didn't think much of it. It was loose, but one day I was using it, and I actually knocked it against something on accident. I was tired, and it just flew off the base. And ever since then, I didn't feel like getting it fixed. And I'm pretty sure Canon would have fixed it for me if I sent it out, but I didn't want to send it out. I just wanted something immediate because the demand of photography is so high. So it's one thing to have a flash that does everything at 1/3 the price, but if you have to keep buying other installment flashes, or other flashes, because the product support is not there, and then you have to keep buying flashes, the same flash over and over and over again, and eventually it gets to the price of the the big branded flash like a Canon 600, it kind of gets redundant and annoying. But yeah, the flash tube section is weak. It's the first thing to fall and get hit, and then you have the 1/4" 20 thread. So you might not understand what I mean by that, but the 1/4" 20 thread, there's a 1/4" 20 thread right here, and this is like an accepting thread for you to screw in maybe a 1/4" 20 to 1/4" 20 adapter. And why is this important? Because if you have a pocket wizard, you can just screw it onto the side, and you can walk around with this, and the pocket wizard will be there. You don't have to dangle the pocket wizard, because that happens a lot. The little cartridge that comes with the pocket wizard is not all that great, but you can actually drill it to the side of the Speedlite or any other optical slave or radio popper or anything that you have. But that 1/4" 20 thread, as a matter of fact, I'm gonna show you. I drilled just a cheap generic 1/4" 20 thread into here. Some piece fell off in the back. It started to travel around. It's just a loose piece, I guess metallic, because it started to ground stuff out on the inside, or it has some kind of metal composite stuff, I don't know. Anyway, it was sending a current. It was attracting, it was grounding stuff out. It was touching stuff, and it was arcing stuff. So basically every time I would flash, or every other time I would flash and then move my flash a little bit, you can hear a pop. I'm like, where did that pop come from? I'm talking about a loud pop, like a little BB gun pop right beside you. I'm like, whoa, who just shot me? No, but nevertheless, this thing, it started to give me issues once that little 1/4" 20 thread piece came off the back and started traveling on the inside, and then eventually it just didn't work anymore. I used to probably, say 3-4 months after that, but I knew it was gonna go down, so I ended up just purchasing one in the interim. All right, so now we got I'm not gonna put it out, but we got a little rotary dial on the back here. That rotary dial is one of the most movable dials in all of photography history. You don't want to be a photographer using a manual exposure, because how they like to say, if you don't use manual, you're not a real photographer. But chances are, if you're using a flash, you're going to be using some kind of manual exposure at some point in time to control whether your ratio of light from what's being exposed to the camera to the ratios of lights outside from your ambient exposure to your flash. So you need manual, because your camera doesn't know all the things that are going on, especially if you're using high-speed syncs and other things. You can't really auto-expose it the way you want to. So, with all that being said, you have to understand that this rotary dial is going to get in your way all the time, because when you go to move and you go from horizontal to vertical, there's a lot of chances for you to touch it, or you put the camera down by your side or whatever, you got a sling strap or anything like that. This rotary dial could get knocked and moved all the time. That's why the 80D came out with this locking mode dial, because it has kind of like a mode dial, rotary dial thing going on there too, but they lock it. All cameras nowadays have locks on all their rotary dials, even the new A7 IV. I just wanted to mention this in the video, but it does have a new locking dial on its exposure compensation dial at the top, so it locks now. That's pretty cool, but I'm eager to talk about the A7 IV in the next episode. But nevertheless, we got the on-off switch. The on-off switch is horrible. I gotta show you this one. Now, if you notice, this on-off switch is like an old, transmission lever that you'll get on a big truck. It's kind of like that in a small form, but as you notice, it's weak. So when you go, if anybody goes to crank it, or actually something rubs up against it or something like that, and even in its case, if something hits up against it on accident or something like that and it's really weak, it'll just keep going past the on the on marking, and this will make it either ground out or not work or not cut on anyway, because it's pushing the actual. It's just bad build quality. It's pushing, and then it'll go to lock mode where you don't want it to go to lock mode, and you can't even feel the clicks anymore. I can't even really. You can hear it clicking, but I can't feel when it stops. So you don't know if it's off, it's on, it's locked, and then somebody sees your picture and they're like, "You suck," because your flash is not acting the way it's supposed to be. And if you're buying a flash or anything worth, or extra, more than just the camera itself, you're trying to get more than just what the camera will provide you, which is natural light. You're trying to add image quality to it, add vibrance, add resolution. You're trying to be that better photographer. You have the idealism to get a better picture quality, and people are thinking the exact opposite. It's probably going to look worse than a cell phone, because if you're exposing with the flash, you're going to have a bad exposure if that flash doesn't flash, because you're relying on that flash to do its job. Then you have poor bounce cards. Most flashes have bounce cards that are inside of here. Pull them out or whatever. I had 6 of these puppies. 2 of them went down. I think about those, but I'd say out of all 6 of them, only 1 of them still has the pull reflector, because if it didn't pull out the first or second day, it was one day I was outside and it was really, really hot. For whatever reason, this really, really hot temperature, I think, aided in just making the little plastic piece give and pull out the white card and the reflector itself. It overheats. It overheats like a mad dog. Like, it overheats when it shouldn't be overheating. And you might be saying, how does that make sense, Devin? What do you mean? Well, if you're looking at this flash and you're flashing, if you wait another day without flashing it at all, you wake up in the next morning, you cut it on, it shouldn't have an overheating symbol on it at all, because I hadn't used it the next day. I waited the next day before I use it again, and she still has the overheating signal blinking at me, and I hadn't took one picture yet. And when a flash overheats, the system tells it to stop or slow down the flash process. It doesn't want to explode. So it's going to tell you it's going to make you slow down. Even though it has a full battery, it's going to make you slow down. It's going to make you not shoot anymore, or it's just going to stop. And it's going to give you this, the Yongnuos do this too. It gives you a certain type of light, and it'll blink with this overheating flash symbol, and that means stop flashing altogether. You're burning it up. It's about to die. So that's something you gotta worry about. And then when it overheats, it starts to fry the already bad circuits inside of the Yongnuo. You might be saying, well, now you're coming for the circuitry. Yes, because I can get a Yongnuo straight out of the mail, mint condition, brand new, and it'll give me a weird sound. Or it's done so many things. I have so many adventures with these Yongnuo 600EX RTs, because I rely on them to get me money for my clients, and my clients need to see a consistent product on the back of my screen, because they're used to seeing consistent products on the back of their cell phones. Even if the pictures are not produced well, they are consistent in what they show, and the cell phones are transparent. You don't want to be that photographer be like, no, you can't see the back of my screen, because people are not going to see you as that transparent person. You have to move with the times, and the time says we can see pictures right immediately after you take them. It's not like the film days. The film times told you, oh, you can't see it, but I say, nevertheless, you have to think about this flash in the context of what you are doing. When you think about this technically, you have a flash that can do ETTL, high-speed sync, optical slave, all these other different modes and stuff like that. You have to have tech that can communicate with a Canon or a Nikon directly. And it's already hard enough for third-party lenses to get every image sharp or a high number of images sharp, even if the lens is sharp, because it can't communicate with the camera, let alone the Speedlite communicate with the camera, all these circuits and stuff like that. You got to have a system that can communicate with that high-speed sync, can tell that camera, hey, you're in high-speed sync mode. Don't go back down to not high-speed sync mode, or you're going to mess up Devin's exposure. This has happened so many times where I've taken pictures and it's acting like it's not syncing. It's acting like it's not on high-speed sync mode. And if I'm outside, I'm going to be shooting high-speed sync all day long. 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, you're sitting there doing high-speed sync. So you got to think about your responsibility as a photographer and what that is going to entail for your equipment. That's why I love using DSLRs, because DSLRs are these cameras that are pretty much indestructible. They have an indestructible body, and they match my spirit as a photographer. So you have to think about that. High-speed sync, auto white balance was off almost all the time, especially if I was in a low-light situation where there wasn't a lot of light to gather. Must have not have been a lot of information for that camera that's into that Yongnuo, and the Yongnuo shot colder or it shot oranger. I will custom white balance everything, and it will still get the white balance wrong. And if I switch it to another flash, it's easier. It may or may not get the white balance right, but the other flashes, I've never experienced that. With my 600 EXRT, I've always experienced it, but with my 600 Flashpoint, 600 Explorer 600, I have never experienced white balance shifts so dramatic that I can notice it on the back of the screen. That's terrible. The signals, all that stuff. And one thing that's really, really annoying is the beep sound. I got 6 different copies, and almost all of them have a different beep, whether it's lower in volume or higher in volume, or it's just a different sound altogether. I don't know what is going on with the quality control of Yongnuo, but it's not. I don't think it's worth even selling to anybody. And it's not that it's necessarily can't do the job, and it's not that, oh my goodness, Devin, you're just heavy-handed and you do all this stuff. No, like, it's one thing to give somebody a product, but it's another thing to sell them something and promise all these things, and it works only for a day. And some of these flashes I'm getting from Canon and Nikon, they last 6-7 years. For me, the longest flash I've had lasts for about 7 years, and that was used. So I'm Devin with CenturyFX Studios, guys. I know this went on for a long time, and it's sweat again here because I cut off the air conditioner for the microphones. So yeah. If you want to buy this, know that you will be buying another one if you care about keeping up with it and forgiving it for that many times. I would advise you get a Flashpoint or Godox branded flash. They're a good brand, and they don't cost as much. They cost a little bit more than Yongnuo, but the one I have right now is doing me a lot of good. I'm done with CenturyFX Studios. Thanks for watching.